Welcome to the Child Care Directorship Chair, the podcast for bold educators who are ready to lead, grow, and shake things up in early childhood education. Whether you are a teacher eyeing that lead role, a lead stepping into leadership, or a center owner dreaming big, this is your space to grow with purpose and leave your mark. Hosted by heart-centered leadership coach Erica Sacoccio, each episode brings you real talk, actionable tools, and a contagious laugh or two, all designed to help you step into your next level with confidence. So pour your coffee, pop in those earbuds, and take your seat, because your leadership journey starts right now in the Child Care Director's Chair.
Hey guys, it's Erica here with the Child Care Directorship Podcast. I have a question for you, or maybe more like a statement. But culture isn't written in a handbook. It's felt in every way that you show up in your leadership every single day. It's in the consistency of communication. It's in the trust that either keeps your people engaged or quietly pushes them out the door. Today, we're talking about culture by design and how leadership consistently shapes the work environment and the big role that it plays, whether it's how staff choose to stay, when they choose to stay, why they choose to stay. So I'm so excited to be joined by Bryanne Adler from Tiny Learning Town. She's a leader who truly lives this work every day. Bryanne has built teams where culture is intentional, leadership is consistent, and people feel supported and valued, of course, and motivated to grow. And she'll be bringing us these insights at the Early Childhood Education Empowerment Conference. But we just wanted to bring a little bit to you today. And you know the cool thing? This is going to be live. So we're recording today, and this is going to go up as soon as we're done. So it's going to go up in probably about 20 minutes from now. So welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Tell folks a little bit about who you are.
I am Bryanne Adler, as you said. I used to be an early childhood educator. I am now a leader. I also do professional development. I work with leaders and teachers all across the board and whatever they might need assistance or help in.
So when you think about workplace culture in early childhood education, what does it really look like day to day beyond mission statements and policies?
You know, I think it's interesting because if you ask leaders, especially those who don't own the program, they sometimes don't know what the mission statement is. They might be able to tell you, but it's not an always guarantee.
Mm-hmm.
And even when you ask the follow-up of, well, how does that show up? They have a hard time answering. So of course, the vision tells us why we're doing this work. But how is not just a written plan, it's communication. And communication has to be clear enough to support our educators with accountability. And culture lives in the everyday moments, how leaders speak to their staff, how mistakes are handled, whether there's follow through, the emotional tone of the building, and whether experience is consistency or chaos. Because culture shows up in the moments people don't think it does.
Yeah, and you can almost tell instantly, and trust me, so can your parents when they walk in for the tour or just your everyday. You feel it. You feel it when you walk in a building. And you know what I'm talking about. And it's not just in EC. Like, you can feel the culture of a place the minute you step in the doors. Like, how are the people talking? How are they greeting each other? How, what does their body language look like? So there's so many cues that you can see if you just step back and just take a look for a second. I think too, when I go out to places and speak, sometimes I'll ask people what are their core values at their school, and they're not always able to answer that. So that is true. And if you're all moving towards that same goal, it's a little hard to move that way if you're not sure, what it looks like in practice. And so we often say, we set the tone. And it's more than just the way we say, right? The way we say it, but what our actions look like. And sometimes what we say and our actions are not always aligned. And staff will call you out on that really, really quick.
They're just like the little kids. They could bring you up or they could bring you down in 0.5 seconds. It just depends on what you say and how you're saying it.
Yeah. So how does leadership consistently or inconsistently show up for staff? And why does it matter, especially around retention?
My goodness, that is such a big topic. We can have a conversation on just this alone for sure. But, I think inconsistent leadership, it just really creates anxiety. and people don't stay where they feel anxious. And over time, that anxiety really turns into doubt, instability, and faster burnout. And then we go into downward spiral of educators start questioning their competency and their professional identity. But when leadership is consistent and predictable, staff experience clear expectations, they get calm responses, and they have the same standards for everyone. So when that is happening, consistency creates safety, and safety is what keeps people going and wanting to stay. When programs don't have that consistency, leaders usually end up filling positions just to fill them. So it becomes unsustainable. And instead of leading, they're always putting out fires. And consistency isn't just good for staff, it's essential for the health of the entire program, really.
Yeah. I find sometimes that when I talk to leaders, they will say things like, well, it's hard to be consistent because every day looks different and we're constantly putting out fires. So let's talk a little bit more like what does consistency look like in leadership? How do they even know they're being consistent?
I think it varies on your staff too. Do they want to be there? Are you just filling spots just to fill them with people who don't care about kids and are just there for the paycheck and summer's off? But I think showing up consistently is just, again, communication. Are you doing daily or weekly check-ins with your staff? Are you modeling what you expect to see in them? I think that's a big one. A lot of leaders don't model. And yes, I granted, there's always issues every day. But when it comes in terms of putting out fires, it should be with your staff constantly. Yeah. Yes, with kids and families, it's a constant go, 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 go. But why are you constantly putting out fires with your staff? Why is this something that's not able to be discussed and handled and situated? So yes, there's fires to be put out every day for sure. But again, it shouldn't constantly be with your staff.
Yeah. And sometimes our consistency isn't always good in the way of maybe do an inventory of what you're consistently doing. Is it positive or negative? Because you could be consistently not being a good leader. So I think you also need to do, a self-check, a self-assessment. One of the things I think is we always are continuing to grow, right? So I push myself a lot. I read a lot of books about leadership. I will ask feedback, and sometimes, it's funny because as directors, we're always typically like the ones giving the feedback, right? But we don't really always love getting the feedback. Well, I love getting the feedback. It's like I always call it the golden gift, right? So let's talk about retention for a minute because you said, we could kind of talk about that all day. Let's talk about what are you seeing in terms of retention or not retention? What do folks really need to know or pay attention to?
I think it's really, there's a lot of things to focus on there, of course, but I think the two biggest things I see personally is first one being repairing after conflict. When teachers feel safe and bringing concerns to a leader, they're not anxious about it. They feel safe and comfortable to come to you, and it builds trust. And repair shows educators that conflict does not equal punishment, and they are more likely to stay at that point. And, even like we were saying before too, regular check-ins. When you intentionally create that space with your teachers, they feel seen and they feel heard. And if you have a true open door policy, not just scheduled, a true open door policy, it builds that connection. And when educators feel supported, they feel professional and confident, they're more likely to stay.
Yeah. What are some maybe small leadership behaviors that can make the biggest difference in whether educators feel seen or trusted in your program and committed to staying? What are some of those behaviors besides consistency? Like like actual actions can they do?
Support. That's the biggest thing. How many times have you personally even seen in programs? How often do teachers get thrown under a bus because leaders don't want to take that responsibility? And again, accountability, that's across the board. I worked with a program a while back, and one of their biggest issues is that the teachers, nobody was on the same page of what professionalism meant in that program. So we sat down as a group and we put everybody into small groups, and everybody made a list of what professionalism looks like to them in their opinion. They got some honest feedback of things that needed to be changed. But at the end of the day, we created this list of what professionalism meant. And the great thing was, we printed it out. We gave it to every classroom to hang up. The director held on to it. So then she was able to go around and be like, okay, well, what just happened? Is that part of what our professionalism looks like? Is that on our list that you all made up? So it takes it out of personal and into accountability, which if you don't know how to approach your staff with that, it can just look like you're attacking them and they're going to get defensive and shut down. So I think really understanding professionalism and understanding how they see not only themselves, but their roles as well. Are they clear on their role expectation and what's expected of them? Are they understanding what that means?
Yeah.
So I think a lot of those things are ignored because it doesn't seem important or it doesn't seem like a big deal, but it is. When there's not a lot of clarity, everybody starts making up their own versions of what is clear, of what they think is acceptable or what they interpreted that direction to be or what the job description to be. So, you have to look at your clarity of how are you addressing this? How are you approaching it? And what are your staffing? Like, are they on the same page? And that's where, again, the open door policy comes in of having conversations with them of, is this clear to you? How do you perceive this?
Yeah. And I think you bring up a lot of valid, interesting points. When we talk about clarity or going over like what the job expectations are, we typically will do something like hand them a handbook and then say, have any questions? To be able to be like, no. Understanding that everybody learns the same. All right. And so that's great. Okay, you don't have any questions. Now show me, right? You should be next. Or now that you understand, like, what is that next step for them to do, to take action, to implement? And I get so frustrated when staff go to trainings or workshops and they come back and they give me the paper. And I'm like, great, what did you learn from it? Oh, yeah, it was good. What was good about it? What are you going to change? What are you going to change in the classroom? What are you going to take from it? How are you going to expand on that? And the other thing is, I'm actually currently in school right now. And last week, our discussion is teaching a profession or a position? And right. But, not everybody looks at, including people in our industry, early childhood as a profession, right? Sometimes it's just looked at as a job. Like I go in, I get my check, I make kids happy, keep them safe, and then I leave, right? So I think some clarity overall, not just in our programs, but overall as an industry, there needs to be some clarification too.
I'm actually working on my EDD right now, and a big part of my dissertation is retention.
Yeah.
And that is one of the huge issues of teachers don't feel professional. They're not treated professional, and they have no idea what their professional identity is or should look like.
Yeah.
So as leaders, how are we handling all that income of, well, how do you feel about your role? Because I see you as professional. Because let's be honest, some days you guys do more work than I do. I may put out the fires, but you're the ones who see it get started, if you will. And I think it's really important because one of the biggest reflective questions I always ask my leaders to ask themselves is, if someone approached me this way or spoke to me this way, how would I react and receive that? Because we're going up to our teachers, like you said, are you understanding this? Did you see them read the whole thing, that handbook? Because they probably did not.
Yeah.
I think it's important for strong leaders to recognize that they have to stay open to learning. Like you were saying, you're going back to school, I'm going back to school. We do not know it all. We do not claim to. And I always tell people, if I don't have an answer, I will get you one.
Yeah.
We have to identify our areas for growth, and we have to understand our intentional culture, and that it starts with us.
Yeah. And I think it needs to start early. I think these are conversations that we need to be having like with the teacher assistants, right? Don't wait for them to be like the education coordinator for you to start having meaningful, deep conversations about professionalism in our field. So, when people come to your school for the interview, I think, because a lot of people say, oh, there's opportunity for growth here. And that's about the one sentence that they use. Right. What does that mean?
How does
that look like? How are you going to support me in that? Right. So it might look like for the first, 90 days, we want to get you acclimated, get you in the team, help you understand the culture. And then, the next thing might be we set you up in an individual professional development plan. For us here, having a CDA is really important in an entry level. Like that's the type of language we need to be using with people right from day one and consistently throughout. Don't sell them this American pie dream and then like that's it. After 90 days, it's just like go in the room and that's it, right? But that's what happens in a lot of places.
I mean, honestly, I think all leaders should have to be in a position of a TA or a teacher, because when they are and then they get moved up, they understand, respect, and value those who they are working with them. When you don't have that experience and you just go in as a director and you've never been in any of those positions before, how do you know where to go with that? Like
Yeah.
me, when I first opened my program, I had the education side down pat. I was ready to go. But the business aspect of it, I had no clue. Like
Mm.
that was terrifying to me. So everybody has like that really good strength and that weakness, but we have to recognize that and explain. I agree with you. How does this look to you? So, how does onboarding not become the most important thing for retention?
Yeah.
That sets the tone is the onboarding of are they actually giving me training or are they just promising it and then it never shows up or it shows up halfway?
I'm gonna really dumb this down. When I think about dating, right? Because it's a relationship, right? So
It's
when you're first,
complicated.
right? And when you're first dating, you put on your best dress and you do all the things, right? But what happens after year one, right? So it's the same thing with staff. And that's why you lose your tenured staff because maybe you're not wooing them the same way that you were at the beginning. Because some people do really good at the beginning and they get people really excited to
Oh,
join their
yeah.
team and they do all the onboarding. But then after that, it's like done. Like you're done dating them. So I think, you need to, yes, have strong onboarding, but it has to be some kind of consistent lattice of career development that moves your people up. And let's
Hmm.
let's talk about the other thing is some programs don't want to do that. We're going to be very transparent. And they don't want to do it because they're afraid if they grow you too far, you're going to leave. And why don't they want to make all that investment and you're going to leave? You have to really be able to have those opportunities that when people get to those high levels, what is left for them to do? And so you've got to create those positions, whether it's they're now in charge of training your staff, whether it's they're now, able to open up your next location and run it for you. But you have to have those things because it isn't, you can have a great environment. I had a great place that I worked at,
Hmm.
but I left because I was stagnant and I didn't have any more opportunities for growth. So there's a lot of empty gaps that you could have in your program that you don't realize it. So,
I
yeah.
mean, it's the opposite too of you don't want to grow them too fast because they may leave, but at the same
Mm,
time, if you're not investing in me, why should I invest in you?
yeah.
What's in it for me then? Like you said, I don't want to be stagnant. I want to feel like I'm actually contributing and making a
Mhm.
difference. That's why we get into we certainly don't get into it for the money.
Yeah.
So we get into it because we want to make a difference. We want to be part of this community that and the village that helps raise these kids. Those
Yeah.
are our priority. I love my little age group that I love is 4 to 5 year olds. That's my heart and soul. So when I go and I do things, it's not because I know it all. It's not because I'm the leader. No, it's because I care and I want to make sure these kids have the same opportunity as every other kid in every other program. We want to
Yeah.
build them up. We want to grow them. I want parents to leave my program, and they have, and then come back and say, "Can you please do kindergarten? Like, we miss you. Like, what you gave us is not the same as what they're giving us." And
Yeah.
that's what we want to see. We want them to be happy. We want them to understand what their kids are going to receive. And not only are they receiving it, they're receiving it from teachers who feel appreciated. They're
Yeah.
feeling like they're valued and that they could come to you when there's an issue. And those are the places that give 110%. And like you said, you can walk into a program and tell who does not value their staff
Mhm.
and who
Yeah.
does not, like you said, want to move people up. And they're just putting them there because they have to.
Yeah.
So where's that happy in between?
Yeah. So why do you think people so often leave environments, not necessarily jobs? And what can leaders do differently to change that story?
I think it's because over time, it's how work makes them feel, not the work itself, how work makes them feel like we were just discussing. And
Hmm.
even now, we're seeing teachers leave early childhood altogether. They're not even
Yeah.
switching programs or doing this. They're
Yeah.
leaving because when they've worked in 3 programs and they have the same experience and they're feeling
Hmm.
unseen, unclear about expectations, they're emotionally exhausted and unsupported, it starts to feel pointless. And they
Yeah.
begin to feel that no program could give them what they need. And, I think it's really important to understand most of these educators love their job. Like you and I love it. They love it too.
Yeah.
But
And
they
it's
love their
hard.
little learners. They want to be there for them and they believe in the education, but they're walking away from not the children. They're walking away from the environment and the leadership that makes them feel unstable.
Yeah.
And that is the biggest heartbreak to see when these people leave mid-year and now you're
Mm.
filling a spot with somebody who doesn't care.
Yeah. For I think for leaders who are listening, uh, for leaders who are listening who feel like stretched thin, like where's the best place for them to start when they want to like be more intentional about culture? Because I do think there are a lot of great directors out there who do want to do better, who are, willing to help and support, but also are stretched thin because there is a lot more. I was just saying this to my sister yesterday. I'm like, how much the industry has changed dramatically in terms of regulations and quality standards and workforce platforms and just all of this online stuff that now we're doing on top of just regular compliance. Yeah, it takes so much time. In our state, I mean, lots of states have workforce registries, but our state, we just really had one that's like up and you've got to do all of your staffing files online, your renewals online. Like that's a lot of, it used to be a lot easier just to take a piece of paper and write down Susie's in the toddler room. But I mean, the amount of time that I'm spending on a computer is grossly taking away from my time with my people. So I understand those leaders who's like, oh my God, like how many, because they're human too, guys, right? How much more can I possibly do? So we know the best thing to do is to start small. So where's the best place for them to start? And they can just be more intentional about culture.
I think this is one of those times where it's important to pause and take a step back. Observe, what are you seeing? What are the real needs of your program? Are you overthinking, stretching yourself in an area that really doesn't need to be? And we want to take a look at the small tasks and responsibilities. And as we were saying before, how can we delegate it out so we're not so overwhelmed? Because me keeping track of attendance, well, maybe I could delegate that task to you and explain how that role is going to be for you. And now giving you more responsibility and, just kind of finding that happy between with it. And, I think it's really important to remember you don't have to do everything alone.
Yeah.
You have a staff who, especially in wonderful culture schools and everything that feel safe, they're there to help you. They will help you. And, one intentional change can make the world a difference. So maybe you're finding a new way to communicate with your staff. Maybe you're creating a different system shift or clearer expectations, because making those little small differences can make a huge difference. So something as making your expectations clear or your role clarity clear, it can make you feel so much less overwhelmed and so much less stressed in. So make sure you're reflecting before you react. Make sure you pause before you respond. And remember, culture is not created overnight. I think that's really important. People on Friday, like, we're going to do this, and by Monday, we're going to see. Blah, blah, blah. Appreciate your enthusiasm, but it takes time, it takes consistency, and it takes upkeep. A lot of people don't realize they get their culture to where they want it to be, and then they don't do any upkeep.
Yeah.
So, we have to stop trying to fix everything at once, because when we do, it leads to burnout.
Yeah. Yeah. So I asked you quite a few questions. As we wrap up, is there any piece of advice or anything you want to leave the listeners that I didn't ask you?
All right. First and foremost, I'm going to tell all of you wonderful leaders out there to take a deep breath and recognize that you're not alone. I think a lot of leaders feel this way, and the reason is simple. We are tired, we are burned out, we are often, we feel isolated because we can't be too friendly, but we don't want to be not friendly enough where nobody feels comfortable for us. And we can't vent to teachers like they vent to each other because it's not professional and it makes problems. And you're not the only one struggling with this reality. And you guys can start today of making a difference. It's all about showing up in consistency. And like we said, communication, check-ins, and modeling accountability. Stop being afraid to apologize to your staff, admitting you're wrong. It's okay. We want to show them that modeling so they do the same back. Get organized. Make sure you guys know what part of your culture needs your immediate attention right now. And then that way you have your list. So again, you're not doing it all at once, but you're able to break it up and see where you really think it needs help. And if you're not sure, send out anonymous surveys and make them truly anonymous to staff, to parents, and see what's what of where you need to be. And, you just take your time. It's okay to show up differently for your staff and knowing how they need you to show up. And it's okay to also take that time as we expect our staff to take care of themselves so they don't get burnt out. You as leaders, when you get burnt out, you show up differently. When you're stretched thin and burnt out, you're not showing up the same as you did when the honeymoon period was there, if you will. So I want to make sure that everybody is thinking about one shift that they can make to help themselves, whether it be with culture or burnout. Maybe it's also personal life. Put those boundaries in place so you could take care of you. And make sure you let us know how you're planning on making that shift, especially if you are coming to the conference. Make sure you come talk to me afterwards. And if you need support in something, I'm part of that community for you guys. And Erica has created this great community here. And especially at the conference, let's lean on each other for support. Let's be honest and self-reflective. How can we do better for our staff? How can we do better for ourselves?
That sounds like a great way to end the show. So, for our listeners that are listening today, if this conversation resonated with you and you're ready to dig into deeper leadership and culture, we'd love to see you at the Early Childhood Empowerment Conference happening May 7th, 8th, and 9th at the Crown Plaza in Warwick. This is a national conference that brings together early childhood professionals from across the country, learning, connecting, and inspiring. Together, you'll get to hang out with cool speakers like our guest today. Again, stop working in silos. You're not alone, and we want to help you. So, link is below. And as always, have a great day, and thank you for tuning in to the Child Care Directorship Podcast.
That's a wrap for this episode of the Child Care Director's Chair, where we believe leaders aren't born, they're grown. If something sparked for you today, share it, shout it out, or pass it along to the next bold changemaker in childcare. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and stay connected with Erica Sacosio for more real talk leadership tools and a whole lot of inspiration. Until next time, lead with heart, grow with fire, and always remember, the chair is yours. Now own it.